everybody, and welcome to my new project. I am KellieAnn Halvorsen, Salt Lake's nerd girl. A little bit of fangirl here, and I am starting a new fandom project. I have actually left KSL. I got laid off last month, but I want to keep sharing with you all these wonderful fandom opportunities that I find here in Utah. So I'm starting a kind of a Utah fandom project channel. And I apologize for not being in a professional studio today, but I am really excited because we got invited last minute to go see Young Washington in the theaters before it came out. And I want to see it so bad. I had some friends, including one sitting with me today, that wanted to see it really bad. And so I called them up and like, let's just do this and we'll do a quick testing of a podcast video to see if it works out. And that is my friend here today, Chris Graham. Do you want to introduce yourself a bit?
Sure. Yep, as she said, I'm Chris Graham. Also from living in Utah here, but Virginia native.
He
In
was.
Virginia.
He was born on Washington's land.
I was born in Northern Virginia on a place called Fort Belvoir,
Mhm.
which, of course, Belvoir
Was in the
shows up in the
film.
film.
Yes, it does. How cool is
Um,
that?
so it's essentially on the land that Washington eventually owned
Mhm.
um, later in his life. And yeah, and then also my parents and grandparents attended the Episcopalian church that he attended.
And you were blessed as a baby in that same
Cool.
basin. How cool.
So cool.
So we got a little historic
I mean,
vibes here
I
today.
stood in the pew that he was in. Like it has a little placard like this is the pew where George Washington
Mhm.
attended church.
Oh wow, that I am a little jealous here because I love history, but I'm a Utah history girl and a little bit of California and Canada, but I primarily lived here in Utah. But anything exploring history is always super fun, and right now we are celebrating in a couple days here the 4th of July, the 250th birthday of our wonderful nation. And it's a time to learn a bit more. And Chris has actually had a good idea that he's talked about doing for a while now that I'm gonna make him discuss at the end here
Sure.
before we get to that.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and start with Young Washington. We are going to try to be spoiler free, but we'll see what happens as we go along and how good my editing is when I'm not being paid. We'll figure that out. So we are talking about Young Washington, and it is an Angel Studios film, produced by them. They are local. They're in Provo here, but they do wonderful shows like The Chosen, and some other really big hits that have come up, like David, the animated one that came out at Christmas. The David, did you see that one when it came
I
out?
haven't.
Oh,
Never
it
heard
was
about
so
it though.
good, and the music was really wonderful for this. But what's really great about this is we could even start off with some of that. It is a very Christian company. And one thing I was worried, and I do worry when I go see Asian films, is if it's too religious and not accessible to the wider. So I think first off, I just want to say I was pleasantly surprised and very glad actually that not just the quality of the film, but how balanced it was. Yes, there are themes woven throughout of divinity and God and faith and whatnot, but it wasn't overpowering.
No, it doesn't like hit you over the head with it. It just
Mhm.
mentions like providence, right?
Providence,
Yeah,
yes.
that he felt that he was kind of preserved for a
Mm.
special purpose,
For
right?
something, right? I think a lot of us feel like that we have some sort of divine intention within our lives. And what was great too is it wasn't just Christian, you because they do, as they talk about balancing, you have stories of women, you have stories of slaves, you have the stories of the Native Americans mixed within there, and you get some of their traditional spiritual values as well.
Yeah, totally.
Um,
It was very balanced in that way,
Definitely.
and I think very accessible.
Definitely. Let's really quick go a little bit into what the plot line is. So, as the movie says, this is young Washington, and I'll just play the trailer up here a little bit. So it's young Washington, so it's his younger life. So we start him at it starts really at a pretty young age. There's some flashbacks and going between different battles and whatnot, but it tells the story before the Revolutionary War. And sadly, I'm not a historian. I haven't lived in the Virginia area
So I'm no
and
historian
visited
either.
these sites.
I'm a lover of
You are a
history,
lover of history.
and I listen to like history podcasts, and I've read a few books on history, but like it's not like I'm.
You're better than me. Like, I really enjoy listening, asking you to explain things. I didn't really know much about the French Indian War is what they called it.
Well, that's what they called it here
Yeah,
in the colonies and afterwards, but it was no, the rest of the world was the 7 Years' War.
the 7 Years' War, and that's
Mhm.
kind of what led up into what became the Revolutionary War.
It's sort of a prequel,
Okay.
sort of for the
Yeah.
revolution, because it a lot of the issues that the colonists were upset about
Mhm.
really started during
Stemmed from there.
that time period.
Yeah, yeah. What you kind of see that in the film. There's things of breaking through like your caste and getting into different offices and politics and things like that and fighting an older system when you're on a different land. So this really goes to young Washington's life from the death of his father, which he didn't say in the film, but I think I looked it up. He was about 11 years old, 10 years old.
Mm. Yeah, I'm not sure.
You're not quite sure? Yeah, and then his being raised, more of his half brother taking him under wing, Lawrence, who was there at the screening, which
That was really
like,
fun.
wow, it's fun. And then up through his fighting in the start of that French War, and
Mhm.
I really liked it. What with the themes of heroism and everything within it was really a how failure can actually lead you to greaterness
Yeah.
in accepting of it. So really great themes there. So this movie kind of goes through that and it dips a bit into his family life, into his social life, into him moving through that. And I liked it so much. Like when I left, I went and found a history documentary on YouTube and I watched the whole thing because I'm like, wait, what is
Okay.
this about?
I've
But
been
yeah,
listening to some podcasts
you
about
have.
the history. Yeah.
And I think that's one of the great things is if you like particularly something that's historical or a biopic or a topic you're not as familiar with, and you leave the film, you leave the TV show, you leave the book wanting to know more about the experiences of others, it's a hit in my book. So I
That's the sign
really
of
enjoyed
a
it.
good historical drama is
Mhm,
one that it gets you to want to go discover the actual
mhm.
history, because of course we know that like a historical drama, don't go and watch a movie about history thinking that you're getting perfectly planned history,
Exactly.
because you're not. A movie is an adaptation, right?
Yeah.
Just like anything else. If you adapt it from a book,
Mhm.
you're not getting the actual book. If you want to have the actual book, read the book, right? But they have to adapt things and
And I
change
agree
things, right?
with that because
Yeah.
as you adapt, the message changes as you change the medium, and then you reach a different audience.
Right. A movie that
Mhm.
told like history exactly perfectly and had every single figure and name and person involved, and it would be so boring, right?
100%.
And one thing I've heard that I really like is that if you want to know what really happened, you go watch a documentary.
Yeah.
But if you want to know how history feels, you watch a drama, a
Right.
historical drama.
And it gives you the context in an approachable way.
Right.
And what's really great as well is we don't have some of the documentation of other people. We don't have much documentation of slaves, of Native Americans. And even Washington himself, in one of the history documentaries I watched after this, he went back into his earlier writing as an older person that had been the president of the United States, a founding father, and all these things he edited out some of this stuff. Some of the records they found showed him as a bit more uh funny and jovial and willing to make a crass joke or whatnot.
Yeah.
So even we edit ourselves of how
So he's concerned about his legacy.
yeah, he's concerned about his legacy. So one thing I really liked about the dramatization of this film was not only was it done really well, but it was done very compelling and makes you really enjoy the
Mhm.
character. Like I think particularly after the loss and the sadness of last week's Supergirl. And like how much I didn't like her as a hero in this rendition in 2026 and how much I like her outside of that. It made me leave thinking, yeah, I really need to be choosing my heroes better and how wonderful to learn a bit of history that we don't know about our heroes. Mm. So what's your general thoughts of the film? That's kind of mine as I enjoyed it. I it made me want to learn more about history, which is like where it should be.
Yeah, no, I found it was entertaining. It was, informative. Like there were some things, even being a fan of history,
Yeah.
I haven't myself delved much into this particular point in history. Um the the French and Indian War and the things I knew that Washington was a surveyor,
Mhm. Right, and I've heard of things like Fort Necessity, but I never knew what
Right.
the battle was or anything.
Right, and all those things. There were certainly some moments that were like, uh, "Oh, really? Oh,
Right,
I didn't know about that,"
yeah. Right.
and
That's not Martha. Yeah, yeah.
that's right, that's true. There's some interesting stuff I learned about that whole thing too, but we want to avoid spoilers,
Yeah,
honestly.
sorry.
Yeah, but yes, there's a a touch of romance, right?
Yes, which I, as someone who's softening because of our friends at the Hallmarkies podcast,
Salt
it's
Bay
getting there
romance.
just a little bit. Just to add that.
But yeah, so I was also, I really liked how I liked some of the guest I guess you'd call them guest stars, but
Yeah.
like, they had some pretty big name
Ben
actors.
Kingsley, Andy Serkis. We love Andy Serkis. He's coming to FanX in fall, and I'm really excited.
Kelsey Grammer.
Kelsey Grammer, which she's done some other really great things with Angel Studios, the Jesus Revolution, and stuff like that. And also, like, just a brilliant actor, and even singing like Broadway type stuff. I really enjoy him.
Can I say Kelsey Grammer is aging very well.
Very well.
Like,
Yeah.
when I was watching, and now obviously it's a movie. There's lighting, there's makeup.
Yeah.
But
When they're powdered wig.
and that's exactly. But I mean, seeing him, he doesn't like. He looks like he did back when he was a Frasier.
Yeah.
Like, so it's
Yeah.
like, I'm like, wow, dude,
Surprising.
good on you.
Good on you. 30 years later, he's
Right?
still Frasier.
Doing
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
And but and I loved Andy Serkis.
He was so good. It was such a different part for him too, and it explored an aspect of that I didn't think of like the British side of these things that I wasn't aware of.
Yeah.
So he's very good.
Well, and actually that brings me to one of the things I really loved about so you do get some of the underlying reasons for the eventual revolution showing up in the film. Right?
Yeah.
The unfairness, right, to Washington. He wanted to succeed on his own merits, but he was stymied by um basically he wasn't
Cultural
British born.
gaps.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was a, a low-born person from the colonies. He
Born
wasn't
in Virginia.
right, and he could never be a British officer. He could never be, get the things he
He
wanted.
wouldn't even get his father's wealth because his older brother got it. Like these little aspects you don't think about in modern society where we have the freedom to pursue what we want.
And I'd also say one of the things, portrayed in the film very well is, and I think it's one of the things that was underlying towards the revolution.
Yeah.
Is the general attitude of kind of like, I guess, haughtiness of the British towards the Americans.
Yeah.
Like they were constantly saying,
it's not.
"You're just some like backwater colonial, right?" And again, how much was that happening? I don't know. But I do feel from what I've seen and read that the um you know the people who lived in America back then were very at first they loved that they were British.
Yeah.
Right. They loved being part of the
Yeah.
greatest empire, in the world at the time.
Over
Right.
distance, things change.
Right. Well, but I think they kept feeling abrasive under this. Like, first of all, they had a lot of freedom.
Yeah.
And to do whatever they wanted for like a century, right? There's almost a century there where Britain kind of just didn't even kind of
Really the front, yeah.
He's like, whatever.
Well, there's like those weird religious
And
people. Hey, it sounds like Utah.
Right, all the weirdos also left England, and so they're like, oh yeah, let them do whatever they want to do. But then, of course, about 100 years later, so we're in 1750s, right? And then a new king came in. King George III came to the throne kind of in that same time period. And all of a sudden there was this interest of like, oh, you know what? We haven't really been using our colonies the way we should.
And it's the resources, it's the finances,
taxes,
corporate greed that continues to ruin America.
All those things, But throughout all that, the British looked down their noses at Americans, I think, on the whole. And I think a lot of Americans started to feel sort of like why are you guys treating us like this? Why do you treat us like second class citizens? We're British too, right?
Particularly when they have literally fought to keep the lands. They have gone through, and I hate the terms. What's the term? they've gone through and really made a path in the frontier, civilized it,
Hmm.
gotten the farmland, used the land differently than the natives that were here. But for them, they put a ton of work into that land.
Yeah.
And for someone like Washington, where he was there, he was how many generations into America? It was like three, right?
I think he was the third generation. I think his grandfather
Yeah, so he had been
was the
born of those that
first.
were born of the land
Yeah, no, yeah.
and had
Washington
vicinity. Yeah.
was Virginian.
Mhm.
Of course, he wasn't. He wouldn't have called himself an American.
Yeah.
He says back then, the not being united yet, people
Mhm.
didn't think of themselves as,
Yeah.
oh, I'm a citizen of the United States of America, and they thought of themselves as citizens of their unique
Which is
state.
why we're the
So
United
he's
States, we
Virginian.
come together. Yeah, I love that. Which is really great in the film to kind of see that back and forth, and even just the costuming. Which I have to say, the production value, I really enjoyed the production value of this film.
It's right up there with any Hollywood
Mhm.
film. Like, even
Yeah.
and considering, I mean, this film is, I mean, lower, but it's not
Yeah.
low budget. I wouldn't call it a low
No,
budget film,
no.
but it's lower than you might
It's
typically
not a
see in Hollywood.
blockbuster. This isn't
Right.
Nolan. No,
Right. Yeah. They're not
Nolan.
spending
Sorry, sir.
Nolan, right? They're not spending, 100 million on
Mhm.
this, right?
Which you kind of don't want to, because we want to have stories like this that are have a little bit less those big production studios, but have more kill your darlings type of than a solo project, so that we can get this middle ground and tell these stories that we're missing. In fact, that was one thing they talked about. Is do you want to share what they're
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously a lot of this hangs on the success of
of this?
Washington.
Mhm.
So if this is the type of content you want to see, go out there and watch it, especially on opening weekend, because
Yeah.
a lot of decisions are determined on opening weekend,
Yes.
right? Like,
Yes.
how long the film is going to end up staying in theaters and stuff
Mhm.
is going to.
Even on Angel Studios right now on their websites with like the pre-purchasing and whatnot, it's like what's the most patriotic state? And right now it's Utah. Thank you very much. And then it's like
Wait,
Texas and
not
Florida.
Virginia?
Not oh, I'm sorry. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
well,
It's those crazy Utahns in our extremities.
it's the Utah connection.
We're in the
There's
nerdiest
a lot of
universe.
there's a lot of Utahns involved in the filmmaking.
That was
Right.
true. That's
So
true.
too. So, but going to their announcement, yeah, they do have plans to make other films. They'd like to make other films about other characters, and then also they mentioned the next idea would be to do like a 1776 or
Oh,
something
I
like
would
that.
love that. 1776. I want Benjamin Franklin is
Hmm.
infinitely fascinating to me. I actually went down to Philadelphia a couple years ago, I was on a solo trip, and I was so excited to walk where he walked. I had pictures of myself, like little selfies, and one of them is standing over the hole that's like marked like this was his privy. Like I'm excited, like his house and everything. I'll just insert some pictures from that trip there. The Franklin Museum. I was so nerdy and excited about it.
Ben Franklin pooped here.
Exactly. That's what a privy is. If you don't know, we have just learned that. But I love these little aspects of histories we don't get. I would love to learn more about Benjamin Franklin that's less sanitized, than what we get today. Think of it how popular Hamilton because it was less sanitized. I want to hear more of these. And I want to hear more of these stories that we haven't heard about women and whatnot. Betsy Ross, it'd be wonderful to hear these stories. And that's one thing they kind of put it at us as the producers at the streaming was if this succeeds, they want to have it like its own little MCU or okay, let's expand into these other founding fathers, which I think wonderful, particularly in a time where our nation is so divided and the people are against each other. It would be wonderful to really hear that foundational stories of these people. And they still fought at the time. There was a huge part of should we declare ourselves and sign this Declaration of Independence when we're still fighting about slavery? We are still fighting about the same things today, and they came together to form a union, and that's what we need to be doing now. So I think that'd be wonderful if that was able to do.
Yeah, and have some, lay the groundwork in the same way the MCU did, where it's like, let's do single movies on different important founders,
Yeah.
lay the groundwork on where they came from, what was important, and then
Mhm.
you'd have an Avengers movie where it's like
They all come
the
together to fight
revolution,
Thanos.
right? It's the Revolutionary War, right? Which is the yeah, get the Avengers unite, right?
My head is going off on a
Avengers
tangent.
assemble.
Yes, yes, definitely. I do like that very much. So,
Alright.
um,
But yeah, no, it would be really great to see those. We're lacking a lot of
yeah,
their film from this time period, which is so weird to me. That like
Like, I grew up on Wishbone that did one. I grew up on
Yeah.
PBS specials on the history of American
TV
films.
shows like there's like 500 films made about World War II.
True.
And that
Oh my
they've made a
god.
film about every single battle and every single section. They've dramatized everything on
Mhm.
that, But Revolutionary War does not have a lot of film. Like
Yeah.
there's only a handful of films,
1776?
which is great. I love it. But also that's a musical. Oh, I
Oh.
like and why? Well, look, no, no,
I
no,
know. You know me. I'm a
I'm not
huge
putting down
girl.
musicals. I love it. I watch 1776 every year
Yeah.
on the 4th. Oh, you haven't?
That's one of the films that we go watch with your
I don't
your idea.
watch it.
That's one thing. Real quick before we get to that, we'll just hint you has a whole list of revolutionary films that we need to start watching and critiquing and talking about, and to get us set up for our 250th anniversary of the nation. Real quick before we get into that, let's talk the negatives. And we're
Oh
both
yeah.
fans. I'm a fan. You're a fan. We are literally fans of fans. We were both had them on our faces, but his wife makes fun
You're a
of me.
bigger fan than I am.
I'm the bigger fan at this moment. But let's talk about some of the negative. I think the one thing that draws this back, besides people being maybe too cautious because it is an angel studio and we're in a very divided nation right now, and maybe they don't want, they worry it might preach, but it really isn't preaching at all. It is a little bit slow at times.
Mhm.
I might have wanted to pick up the pacing. I think sometimes people think that the slower it is, the more dramatic it is, the more impactful it is. But there were times I just wanted it to speed up. Is probably my biggest concern in
I
this
felt
film.
that some too. Also, and I think this is actually not just an issue with this particular film, but a lot of historical drama. It could use a punch up, meaning a little more humor, a few more moments of levity, or like something to kind of just break the tension, right?
Particularly in something like this where, like, oh my gosh, I never think about war of back in then their days, and particularly the comparison of the British War, where you line up, you shoot, you line up, you shoot, versus the more going into guerrilla and shooting from the trees type stuff. How violent it actually is, when
Yeah.
we see these type of work. Um, so maybe a little bit more punching that up.
Yeah.
I also think some of this stuff we need a little bit more historical, quick exposition. Like, I didn't know anything about the French Indian 7-Year War.
Yeah.
That those are probably the only thing really I would be kind of upset about. Like, all the performances. This young Washington was brilliant. Like, he was so good. Be it Ben Kingsley in it, a lot of these other characters in it. His mother within it, very wonderful.
Yeah.
Christopher. Oh, if you know the history, Christopher Guest. I won't say it. Um, he offered some of that levity and some of that heartbreak within there as well. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed the performances, the music. Washington's mother.
Mhm.
It was so wonderful to see a show in history that so unabashedly gives credit to the mother for her mothering and her
Yeah.
leadership and guidance. So I really, really enjoyed that.
I also liked the little, um, very subtle thing, where she stops him from chopping down the tree.
Right? And I'm like, wait, was that him or Lincoln? I felt really bad. There's a few
No,
moments.
the history, or I should say not history, but the myth and the legend is that yeah,
Is that not true?
it's not true. No, it was well, this is an important topic. But it's just
He's myth correcting us, myth busting.
so when you know, and I can understand the reason for this, but this is actually addressed really well in the John Adams miniseries.
Yeah.
Did you ever see that?
Mm-mm-mm.
So near the end, like in the one of the last chapters, Adams, of course, elderly statesman, he sees the painting of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. It's a real famous one. Everyone's seen.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All the signers are there in the picture, and everyone's standing majestically and kind of proud, and he's like, it didn't happen. This didn't happen.
Uh-huh.
Like we were never all in the same room at the same time.
Well, yeah, they had to go. Yeah, do
Yeah,
that.
and like
Thank you, Animania.
you're making us out to look like you're deifying us almost, right?
We
So
have so leaned into lately, and it's such a bad idea.
and even within his own lifetime, America had already started to mythologize the founding, right?
Yeah.
And now look, I understand the reason for it. America wanted to feel be legitimate, right?
Yeah,
Like, hey, we just fought for our freedom, and here we are, a new nation. But also, we want our due respect, right? We want, and so we have our founding myths and our legends, and
well, and they controlled the media at the time. It's not like the internet now where we can find histories that are maybe a little more hidden. But so who created the chopping machine?
I don't remember the name, but I do know that uh there was a somebody, I believe he wrote around that time period,
Yeah.
sort of in the early 1800s. I don't know.
Something
I
like
might
that.
just be
But
playing
it's like
that,
it's more contemporary.
but it's essentially, though, yeah, people were writing stories that were mythologizing, right?
Mhm.
Everyone loved Washington,
Yeah.
and I cannot tell a lie, right?
Yeah.
Like, but they were
He literally
basically,
wore himself out for
they
the
were
country. Yeah.
propagandizing,
Yeah.
right? It was essentially a story he made up to tell to kids, to
Mhm.
teach them not only how awesome Washington was, how awesome our country is,
Mhm.
but also how important it is to not tell lies and to
Yeah.
be truthful,
Yeah.
right? But again, not historical.
Um,
But
but they used that in the film. He came and when he was angry, he'd be chopping at
he
the
was
tree.
he was angrily chopping at a tree, and his mom takes the axe from him and
Mhm.
goes like, "Don't take it out on the
Don't stick
tree,"
it out on the tree.
which I thought was a fun little
That's cool.
wink
We know what it
at that
was.
whole thing. But yeah, but then there are stories that
Mhm.
are documented that they portray, and I think one of the most amazing ones is about the native leader
Half king.
who well, actually, not Half King, the
It's a
one,
different one.
the later one.
Oh, I was
Anyway,
wondering if that was true. We can't talk about it because it's pretty pivotal to the point, but
like,
that's
it,
cool.
it is a big moment, but
Mhm.
yeah, like the fact that but yeah, no, the Half King guy who they meet, that's
The
a
other one.
circle figure
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
And in fact, that whole scene, that's something I learned as well about, that was really awesome. um I didn't realize, I knew that Washington was involved in some way with
Yeah.
the
The native
French and Indian
population.
War,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but that scene and that killing of that happens, that actually was the start of the French and Indian War, or the 7 Years' War.
Yeah.
Like,
And there's
that
these little
moment
hidden things. Yeah.
started what many people call the First World War, because it literally was like, it pulled all these countries into it.
Wait, I'm getting a hysteria moment from the WB TV show, and they did the shot heard around the world. That's something different, though, because
The
that's
shot
here.
heard around the world is specifically the one that happened in the Battle of Lexington and Concord,
Mhm.
which was at the beginning of the Revolutionary War. But you could say that particular shot that
But
they
you
talk
thought
about
it
in the
was
film
real.
was a shot heard around the world, which started off up.
Mhm.
It was the spark that lit the fire.
Okay.
Now, it's not like this one incident caused it all,
Yeah.
because there were all sorts of like political things going on over the preceding
100%.
decades leading up, but like, essentially, the fuel was
The anger was
it was
ignited.
prepared, but
Mhm.
that incident
Mhm.
is what kicked it off,
That's
which
so
is
interesting.
crazy. But the other moment that I'm thinking of wasn't with the Half
The
King,
other
but
native
later.
tribe.
But yeah,
Shoshone, I believe, is what it was.
and there is record of a chief addressing Washington and being like, "Hey man, like, you're pretty amazing, and we tried shooting you, and
Mhm.
we just can't hit
We just
you."
can't hit you. Yeah. Which brings us back to kind of what I said at the start of this to kind of wrap things up is it goes back to again, one thing I really liked about this was how balanced it was.
Mhm.
How it had different perspectives embedded within it, from the British to the Native Americans to women's stories. They didn't ignore slavery was happening at that point. And even to people like George Washington, like his background and everything. I didn't know he had written so much, and his journals were popular, which is why I knew so much about it. So I think that goes back to my generals. I really enjoyed this film. I think if I had to, I'd give it a 4.5 out of 5. It's not quite perfect, but particularly for the type of film it is. Like, it's not an Avengers, although it'd be cool if it became like an MCU. Um, but for the type of film, I think it's excellent. I think the pacing maybe needs to get a little work on. They didn't work more people on the production side to kind of kill your darlings of like, this isn't as interesting, maybe pull it back. But I really thoroughly enjoyed this film.
Yeah, and I'm close. I think
Mhm.
maybe I'd give it a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, you can do a 5-star
That's
scale. I'll do a
okay.
10.
Usually mine is where to spend your money, which for me, I'm like, go see it in theaters. You don't have to see it. on the 4th of July weekend, but go see it in July.
Yeah, no, I think it's a film worth seeing in theaters
Yeah.
for sure. If not, I mean, only because it's a good film and it's worth seeing, but also secondarily to you know promote and to basically tell them we want more like this. We want more stuff like
Yes,
this,
yes,
right?
yes, yes. And they have the Donate Forward program as well. So Angel Studios, how it works is people actually donate and give to different projects within Angel Studios. So that's the reason why The Chosen was able to be created and it became so popular. People essentially paid to produce it.
Yeah.
And then they pay for other people's tickets. And so more people, it's crowdfunding, which is wonderful in a system that's become so politicalized, to be able to do this. It also makes it so shows like this can be produced.
One thing I learned too about Angel
Because
Studios.
he stayed behind, but I go to bed at 9. So he stayed behind and listened to the hour and a half of the producers and actors stuff. Well, I'm actually glad you mentioned this.
It is
Teach me on my one.
well, the other thing I learned about Angel Studios that I really like is that they the in the traditional Hollywood system, the people who those studio owners and runners, they have the money, right? They're the ones who decide whether or not something gets made and whether they think they can get a return on their investment.
Yeah,
So in a way, it's they are the gatekeepers on what
Mhm.
we get to see, but the model that Angel Studios has developed is basically the audience is the gatekeeper because they make it where not only can you fund the things you want to have them make, right, but also you they have like ways of people voting for things.
Yeah.
If if you're like a donor, you can vote on the things you think should be made, the things that are worth being made, right? So in a way, they've given the people a chance to have their voice heard in what content is going to be made later.
That makes me so happy. And even like the previews before, there were some really interesting ones for Angel Studios that's happened because of that. So I'm real grateful for what they've been able to. I've been able to interview and visit some of the locations with Angel before, and I'm fairly impressed by the work that they do there. So
And I think too the fact that they're starting to pull some bigger names into these films. The trailer we saw had Owen Wilson in it,
yeah.
and I don't know the other guy because you said he was.
Oh, I know him. Isn't the Martian? Oh no. Okay, that was a different one.
Yeah.
There's a different one, The Martian. This one I am thinking is the guy from Jack Reacher, Alan Richardson.
Yeah.
So handsome, you can't look at him. Like amazing
Really?
body, and he.
I could look at him, but I yeah I don't have to
But
sustain the.
he's like Henry Cavill. Like yeah.
Oh really?
Anywho, blushing.
You want to turn the fan on there?
Anywho, that film does look really great, and it's a promise to a daughter and trying to get an organ and all sorts of different stuff. But if you do want to go see Jack Reacher, go watch the Amazon version versus the Tom Cruise version because the Amazon version is more like the book. Like his stature, his the way his intelligence, his like street cred and smart is so much better in the Amazon show. So, but there's like nudity and stuff, so you have to be a little careful with it if that's not your part.
So, but yeah, like the fact that they're getting some of these bigger names, it shows that Angel Studios are making good stuff.
Right?
They're making stuff that people want to see. They're making money off of it that they can then put into other projects, and the things they're making are a high enough quality that these actors are like, okay, yeah, I'll be a part of that.
Yeah, Zachary Levi's been in several of that, and we love Zachary Levi with his works with mental health and everything with that. But he's come to FanX a few times, and we really enjoy that. Like, Angel's a good studio.
I saw him from a distance.
You saw him from yeah, me too. He backed out on me 3 times on an interview that wasn't properly set up. So you owe me at some point. All right. So your rating overall, you said 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10.
Go see it in the theater.
Go see it in theaters. And I think, like we mentioned before,
Yeah.
I feel like I really loved the history element of it.
Yeah.
And I think the action stuff was really well done. The one thing that might not bring me back to watch it again,
Yeah.
at least not anytime I think soon,
Yeah.
is that I guess there's a funness. Like I like to have a certain kind of fun, and that comes from humor and kind of like I don't know. There's something about that. It's what they call punching up a script, right?
Drew down the drama a bit and punch up, or like
Well,
this the weight.
you can keep the same drama, but you got to throw in a little bit of like some jokes here and there, some humorous. Right. Oh yeah, it's not that there was none, right? It's like putting salt in the food, right? You want to put enough in there to help the savory drama taste better, right?
Yeah.
By putting in a little bit of humor, and
That.
I think it could have had more of that, but again, it wasn't enough to make me like, oh,
Yeah.
it's just. But I think it, yeah, that's where I think
That's where you
where I
stand.
stand on it, and I think I I think if they can keep building on this,
Yeah.
it could be a really fantastic series of films.
Well, thinking about building on this, because what we've discovered is we have all these creative ideas, but I'm a giant chicken and I get nervous about putting it out. It needs to be perfect before it gets out. And you kind of similar sometimes. So let's build this revolutionary idea you want to do with different films and analysis.
Well, I mean, we've kind of been like dancing around the idea, but it's the idea that I'd like to do is basically do a podcast
Mhm.
slash channel,
Yeah,
YouTube channel on
maybe sub channel here if we can get this going.
yeah, we'll see if we can do it. But basically the idea is I'd like to put films together that kind of tell an overarching story from history, and and the whole point of it would be to kind of discover what are the best films. So if somebody wanted to sit down and watch a series of films, kind of like the thing that got me on this was that I do love the Marvel movies and the MCU, right? And I'm sure lots of people out there love to watch them chronologically, right? Where
Yeah.
as in America, you get to kind of see all the history all the way through, and I love doing that.
Mhm.
And the idea came to me. I was like, it would be really fun to do that with historical
I
films,
think it'd
right?
be really
That
fun.
historical drama, cinematic universe, right? But I'd like to tell some, or not tell, but
Analysts.
focus in on certain stories. And I think right now we're at the Revolutionary War time period. Would be fantastic. So, Young Washington is now
Does that be first?
it's on the list. It
Yeah.
might be first. Or maybe Last of the Mohicans.
Which I still haven't seen. I feel really bad about
I
that.
need to look into it a bit more. I'm not sure. Well, actually, I guess the Last of the Mohicans would have been after Young Washington because it's during the war.
It
So
would have been in 1950s for me. I'm so terrible. I don't know. So
yeah,
yeah.
but like it's a fantastic film,
Mm.
and so that will definitely be one on the list. But and then I'd like to kind of watch in at least general chronological order some of the films that have been made about the Revolutionary War. And then the whole idea would be, hey, if anyone out there wants to kind of experience this time period in history, here are the top 10 films you and the order that you would watch them in to sort of get a
Get
chronological
the idea, the
telling.
themes within it that
Right.
build up. I really enjoy that. Yeah.
And I'd like to do that. And if that goes well, maybe do for other time periods in history that I'm really interested
That's
in.
cool. Well, like he's really good at explaining things to me. You know a lot about like we've had you on fan effects before when it was with KSL, and you did some really great stuff with Dune. I really enjoyed talking Lord of the Rings with you, particularly as the new the Power what's it called? Rings of Power series that come out. Like I would watch this go to your house, particularly the first season, and we'd watch it. I'd watch it with you and your wife, and then I would like the credits end, and I just like tell me, give me the context, give me the coolness of it. So I'm really excited about this project, and I'm hopeful to be supportive of that. Where else can people find you on social media? If you want to mention a little bit of games and things as well.
Sure, yeah, no, well, my wife and I have a tabletop gaming online store.
And you vend at local
We
events.
vend at local events. It's Games and Things Utah on Facebook and Instagram, and gamesandthings.net.
.net.
Yep.
And sometimes you'll see me there at their booth helping out a bit. Sometimes I get a whim to make 100 or sew tribbles, and I need something to do with them, so they will just sell them or things like that. So they're really fun. I'm not a dice goblin, but you understand them better than
Well,
me.
I'm married to a dice
You're married to a
goblin.
dice goblin. Yes, you are.
And I have a few sets now. She's got me pulled into the D&D world, which is a lot of fun. Which is good, enjoying it. Um, but yeah, no, and so that's
And I'm hoping
fun
to,
to me.
pull Chris more into these as we go along. We want to go ahead and start exploring more, um, not just Utah fandom focused stuff, but fandoms in general, reviews, things like that. I have over my tenure at KSL and Deseret News, and just being the nerdy girl I am, I have discovered so many wonderful places and organizations around Utah. I just want to share with you guys. And oftentimes their About Us page isn't quite up to snuff, or they're so focused on an individual event I can't share the story of what created them. So what I'm hoping to do is start putting out videos about these different things. So movie reviews, interviews. I love pushing artists into the spotlight. So local artists would be really a wonderful thing. So that's kind of what we're kind of figuring out how to do here. I want to start this, and I kind of have. This is a question for you guys. Okay, I have an idea for the logo. I've actually already created one. Actually, I'll put them up here as I do that. Should we be called Utah's Fan Culture Podcast, or should it be Utah's Fandom Blog? Each of them has their own rights and everything. Blog means I can incorporate kind of more ideas. We can have written stuff as well as video, or podcast videos, kind of where we're going to start with YouTube before we expand out. Let us know. You can find me at kahalvo.com, and it'll branch out to all these different podcasts I've been on, my writing, my creativity. And even if you're in the south side of Salt Lake, my actually main job is a massage therapist now. I've done it for 20 years. I love it. I love helping people heal. And so you can find that at kahalvo.com. I'll also put notifications up on there for my social about like when I'm doing different things. I was at the museum opening, the Utah Museum at the Capitol this last weekend, volunteering for Better Days Utah. I will probably be with the Utah Arts Alliance for Pioneer Days coming up. So follow me online there. And above all, like the reason we're still doing this and I'm still doing this is I want to share the joy of fandom with people. And I want people to find these awesome local artists and stories that they just haven't heard of. So as you go out today, my fandom friends, go share joy. Share the stories, the fandoms, the opportunities, the experiences that have lifted you up to lift others. Let's see if it's still recording.